Welcome to Frankly Speaking. My name is Onkgopotse JJ Tabane. We are not live tonight. We're coming to you from Studio 12 here at the SABC. You can still follow our show on Frankly Speaking. You can tweet us at JJ Tabane at SABC News Online. Tonight we're speaking to the Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, following a number of developments in the health sector. He recently released draft bills dealing with the national health insurance as well as the medical aid scheme bill. An amendment bill to deal with, amongst other things, issues that relate to co-payments and other issues that will regulate medical aids a lot more tighter. This also happens at the back of a scathing report by the Health Inquiry commissioned by the Competitions Commission about the cost of medical care. Before we talk to him, let's take a look at this.
NHI is defined as a health financing system that pools funds to provide access to quality health service for all South Africans based on their health needs and irrespective of their socio-economic status.
Well, that means health for all, but what does it really mean in practical terms? Must you throw away your medical aid card? What does it mean in terms of simply how people are now going to access health services going forward? Let's go and talk frankly to the minister about this. Minister, it's been quite a journey to a point where you can now release literally now a draft law to put the NHI in its place. In your view, why has there been so much resistance, both on the political side, on the side of medical aids? In fact, we saw medical aids trying to stop the Health Inquiry, bringing out a report about the costs and so on. Why, in your view, has there been such resistance to something that sounds so practical as in access to health to all?
Well, we've been expecting that resistance, JJ, because what you call NHI is not new to the world. It has been implemented elsewhere before, starting in 1912 in Norway, 1948 in Britain, 1955 in Sweden, etc., etc. And in all those countries where it was implemented, the beginning was resistance. Because it's a new thing, a revolution that many people, especially within the healthcare system, those who are affected don't easily understand.
Yeah, but part of the resistance in the South African context is people saying, look, you've got a dysfunctional health system, you've got a system tinkering on collapse. You've had a press conference, saying, no, it's not collapsing, it's in distress. However you couch it, there are problems here where in certain provinces, hospitals run out of medicine. That's saying you are putting the cat before the horse. Why don't you fix the system before you introduce another system that may, in fact, make things worse? What is your response to that?
No, because, JJ, when the United Nations adopted the policy of universal health coverage, but even those countries I've mentioned, they did not implement the systems because things are going well. They implement them specifically because something has terribly gone wrong and they want to correct it. If there's nothing going wrong, then you don't need that system. You don't need the revolution. You don't need to change something that is working very well. The fact that we want change and the fact that United Nations said universal health coverage is because they know the present systems are not working. So we are painfully aware of that.
But give me an example of something that is going wrong now, right? So you got hospitals in the Eastern Cape where communities are said to be told to bring blankets to your hospital, right? Well, you've got a system in the Northwest where procurement has gone wrong. There's corruption, things that are not needed, like, mobile ambulances are being purchased with money that should be going to medicines. You've got life as many here in Gauteng. Can you give me a sense of how the NHI will solve some of those practical things that people are experiencing on a day-to-day basis when they have to get access to health care?
Well, those are terrible examples you are giving, by the way, and indeed they did happen, showing a lot of weaknesses within the system. Now, JJ, we have got a situation here in South Africa where we have got 16% of the population. And these are not just ordinary members of the population. They are people with skills, with education, with resources, with understanding of how the country is run. they are put in one healthcare system,
Yes.
very heavily subsidized, and you have got the rest of the population in a different healthcare system. Surely, you will experience all those shortcomings because it's a natural law that people follow money. Where there's a lot of money, people go there. That's why you have got international migration. Nobody has ever migrated from a rich province, a rich part of the world,
yes,
to the poorest one. It's always the other way around. You migrate from the poor to the rich. So the same thing in healthcare. People will migrate to where there's money, which is in the 16% of the population. Then they leave the other, with no skills, with mismanagement and all these problems. And that's why we need to pool funds for all of us as South Africans to bring all our skills together, to bring all our resources together in order to improve the healthcare system for everybody, not just a selected few.
So how would NHI fix something like left settlement? Let's take that as a practical example. Let's say if it happened in a time where NHI was in place, what aspects of NHI would make me more comfortable to take somebody from my family who has a mental health problem to a facility and not expect them to die unduly? Well,
JJ, the unfairness of it all is that under any system, whether NHI or the present system, life is the main was not supposed to happen. It was an extraordinary act of human lack of compassion and all that. And I'm sure you are aware that some form of punishment and redress has been made. So if you keep on giving as an example of healthcare, it's wrong. Because it bordered also on criminality. That's why it's not the end.
Maybe it's because it happened under your watch. And I'm trying to understand how, if we introduce new amendments, and we'll come to the medical aids now, right? People want to know whether is this not just peppering over the cracks, that this NHI is going to take us from what is really seen as a collapsing health system to something that works for everybody.
No. As I'm saying, you are quoting example of something that went terribly wrong under all systems. Yes, whether it's a present system, whether it's NHI and all that, I'm saying it should not have happened. But under NHI, because there is common pooling of funds for all, there won't be, the people who did Life is Many were talking about financial resources, lacking and all that. Yes, constraints. So we believe in the country, as it is at the moment, there's enough money for everybody. But it's available for a selected few. So once you pull your funds together, you pull all the skills together, you'll make sure that incidents like those don't easily happen.
I want to talk about what that would mean for medical aids, right? When you pull the funds together and whether or not people must still rely on medical aids after that. We're talking to the Minister of Health, that they are on Motsoaledi. After the break, we explore some more about what amendments he wants to make in the way in which medical aids operate. Let's take a break.
Oza, come here, man. This place is looking a mess.
Boss, you holding the plans upside down.
Don't talk back. Lamba, you fire!
Unfair dismissal. Let Clientele Legal tackle your labor issues for you. We have tough, professional lawyers standing by to assist you 24 hours a day. SMS DEFEND to 32281 and we'll call you back. SMS now.
It is not the kings and generals that make history, but the masses of the people. I have always believed in this, but not to the extent to which I now believe that basic principle, because I have seen with my own eyes the masses of our people, the workers, the peasants, the doctors, the lawyers, the clergy, all our people. I have seen them making history.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. You can follow us on hashtag Frankly Speaking. You can tweet us at JJ Tabane at SABC News Online. Tonight we're talking to the Minister of Health, Tate Aaron Motsoaledi, about the developments in the health sector. One of the amendments you are putting through is to deal with the issue of medical aids. And just to quote one example from there, we're going to be dealing with the so-called core payments. People are wondering, after 24 years, how did we allow the medical aids to get away with something like that for so long? Because clearly you think there's something quite wrong with it and it's got to be stopped.
Core payments is a new thing. It has not always been there. If you look at the problems in medical aid, they are progressive. You can't say they were there for the past 24 years. They keep on progressing and getting worse. And the reason were given by the public market inquiry released by former Chief Justice Ngobo. And we are reacting to all those. In other words, it's a progressive worsening of the situation as private healthcare costs become more and more expensive.
Yeah.
Why did medical aids introduce core payments? Because they could no longer cope with what the private hospitals were charging. I've read many documents reporting about Chief Justice Ngobo. They are concentrating mostly on medical aid schemes, which is unfair. And I'm not here to defend medical aid schemes, but they were reacting to a bigger problem, a problem of the costs that were levied by the private hospital groups, especially the big three, which I mentioned in the report, which is Netcare, Life Health, and Mediclinic, because they are so big that they actually occupy more than 80% of the total market.
So they're domineering in nature, means they can charge whatever they want.
Exactly.
Essentially.
Exactly. And this charging whatever they want did not start
in a new era.
Yes, it started.
You mean they started before 94?
No.
Is that what you mean?
No. It got worse in 1998.
Okay.
When they did what they call market concentration. In other words, creating this monopoly. Market concentration is when you create monopoly.
Yeah, but that's like 20 years of this monopoly.
And kick out everybody. Yes, no. It took 10 years for them to create that monopoly. Right.
But why only intervening now? That's what the public wants to understand. Why are you only intervening now with this amendment of the medical aids?
Well, I'm not intervening now, JJ. I started as far back as 2010. When I realized that the cost of private health care is too much, and I've just come in as a minister, and I was asking exactly what's wrong, what has caused it to go so high, and we had to investigate, and that's when we found all these problems of market concentration, etc. But then the other major factor was that the costs were contained by a process which was conducted by a structure called REMS, Registered Medical Scheme Administrators. Today is called BHF, this Board of Healthcare Funders. Yes, they used to sit around the table, negotiate prices. Unfortunately, in 2005, the Competition Commission read that as price fixing. They abolished that. And then it was free for all.
In the current report, is there something that stands out that you didn't know before now? Because if you say this inquiry tells us the cost of healthcare is high, we've always known that.
No, but I went to the Competition Commission to complain about that.
Okay.
I went to them to say this is too expensive. Private healthcare is getting out of control. And they said, now what do you want us to do? I said, no. I am made to learn that one of the main contributing factors is that you abolish the negotiation where doctors, medical aids,
price fixing.
Yes, you call it price fixing. And I went to them to say, please withdraw that ruling. They said no. It took me 3 years, JJ, to convince them that actually something is wrong. And after 3 years, they said, no, Minister, we're not doing what you're asking us. We are not withdrawing the ruling. We want to test your hypothesis. Okay. Is it true that this system is wrong? This private healthcare system is costly? Is it true that there are problems?
Why do you think the medical aids didn't want that to come out? Because if it was already there as something that was in the public, what is their biggest... It was not in the public. What is their biggest worry?
It was not in the public. It was known by those of us running the system.
Okay.
That's why even the Competition Commission started not believing me. And they did something more than what I asked for. Okay. Instead of cancelling the 2005 ruling, they put up the Ngobo Commission, which now disclosed things that you didn't know. I have always been knowing those things because I'm one of the people who went to present to the commission. By the way, I did so in February. Was it March 2016? I went to present all these facts that these are my facts why I believe this thing is expensive. The World Health Organization and OECD also came on board and presented on the 16th of February 2016, 2 years ago, and said your system is one of the most expensive in the world. And they even declared that we're the only country on the whole planet that is spending so much money on so few people. They even declared that they believe it's only 10% of South Africa's population that can afford private health care. But since that time, there's been a fight of these people who are implicated, private hospital groups who were challenging the judge. He was supposed to finish the investigation in 24 months. He ended up taking 48 months.
Sorry, Minister, I need to interrupt there. In your view then, based on what's coming out of the health inquiry, how will that impact on the NHI? In other words, can you tell me what is the future of medical aids and the public's use of those in relation to the NHI?
It will impact very significantly.
Okay.
Because some people are rejecting the idea of NHI on the basis that it's going to be extremely expensive and unaffordable. And where do they take that from? They take them from the present private healthcare system. Many of the people who are critics of NHI who said it's unaffordable, they take the extreme costs, the exorbitant costs in private healthcare as it's happening now.
And say this will appear will apply in the public sector.
And say because it's affecting 16% of the population, they mathematically project it to 100% and say, oh, this is not going to happen. Now, what Chief Justice Mwawe has just done is to show that the private healthcare system is not the gold standard in terms of cost. It's not the way to go. It's exorbitant. Under NHI, you have got to follow a different route altogether.
Will this mean a bleak future for medical aids in simple terms?
I don't know what they mean bleak future. At the moment, there's bleak future for the population, even for the members. So
will I need a medical aid if NHI is in place? Because it's universal, everybody can access it. Will I need a medical aid? Will I need to be spending so much money on medical aid for my family?
No, you shouldn't be spending so much actually under NHI because we're pulling funds for the whole population. That's exactly what we are fighting against. That people are paying exorbitant.
And you're going to fund it through taxation?
Medical aid
How
funds.
will it work?
Yes, medical aid funds are increasing at the rate of more than consumer price index for the past 15 years, more than inflation. They are increasing at 9.2% per annum. And we have calculated, for instance, JJ, that if we leave this system, a family of 4 at the moment with an income of 20,000, on average, they pay 3,800 for their medical aids. At the rate at which is growing, in 12 years' time, they'll be paying a third of their total family income on medical aids. And it will keep on increasing. So it's something that is unsustainable, and even without NHI, it will collapse on its own. So instead of allowing it to go for those years to collapse and start a new system, we're starting a new system.
All right. I want to zone into more of that issues of high costs after the break. We're talking to Minister Aaron Motsoaledi, the Minister of Health tonight, and try to understand what does the NHI mean for you. After the break, we carry on with that conversation.
News at 9. We go beyond the headlines of the day and breaking news to bring you all the angles and in-depth analysis of stories that impact your life. We are on the ball with all economic stories. Our bureaus around the globe are ready to connect you to events as and when they happen. So join us every day at 9 to zoom in on the day's big stories.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. My name is Onkgopotse JJ Tabane. We're coming to you from Studio 12 here in Auckland Park today. You can follow our show on hashtag Frankly Speaking. We're talking to the Minister of Health. Minister, a lot of people are worried about the fact that even as we stand now, there seems to be always a complaint about inadequate funding, right, of health care, right? And I've given you examples. You've just been to the Northwest where you've seen the utter chaos that is there, quite apart from the fact that the national government has had to take over. How will NHI, right, increase the amount of resources available, right, to plug those kind of holes that we have seen in the health sector? Building of new clinics, which people are complaining that they have got to go too much long distance to get to clinics and so on, and avoidance of the shortage of medicines and things like that, that also reflect a lack of resources if those kind of things run out, etc. Can you just give me a sense of how the new funding model will, in a sense, release more resources for this kind of shortages not to happen?
There are already resources, JJ, and this has been calculated in figures, even by the World Organization. They say a country can have a very good healthcare system if that country spends at least 5% of its gross domestic product on health. South Africa has far exceeded that. We're already spending more, 8.5%. The problem, as I said, is because of gross inequality, the way the money is distributed in the country. 4.5% of actually we are spending 8.7 already. 8.5 was some few years back. We're already at 8.7% of the GDP. The problem is 4.5% is given to only 16% of the population, leaving 84% with only 4.2. 84% of the population with only 4.2% of the GDP. Now under NHI, because you pool funds in one pool, you are equalizing. You are equalizing between the rich and the poor. You no longer have the rich who are heavily subsidized. Do you know that this 16% of the population is subsidized by the state this year for 57 billion rand? Money which is not available for the poor.
I'm not sure whether I can understand it fully. Can you just give me an example? Let's focus on oncology, right? KZN, we are told there's 1 or 2 oncologists for the entire province of millions of people.
It's not true.
No. But that's what the health MEC has admitted. The oncology machines not working. The whole place just looks like in shambles.
For the whole province.
How will the NHI change that system just on oncology? Are you going to have, for example, ordinary people being able to access private oncologists?
Yes.
Right. And those oncologists, are they obliged to open their doors for NHI, if you like,
that by the way,
candidates
that has already started.
Patients?
JJ, that has already started.
Okay.
We said the whole concept of NHI is that the whole population must have access to both healthcare system, public and private. At the moment, only people with medical aid have got access to both. To both, by the way.
Yes.
Because if you have got a medical aid and your benefits get exhausted in June, you go to the public sector, you get treatment there.
Yes.
But people who
as if you don't have a medical aid.
Yes, as if you don't have a medical aid. Yes, exactly. But people who are poor, when they go to the public healthcare system, they find something. Even if there's something next door in a private healthcare
they'll be chased away.
They are not allowed there.
Are they saying those private hospitals will then be obliged to take patients
of course,
across?
That's the aim of NHI, that we must use all that we have got. That's why you must pool funds. If what you need is in a private hospital, why not? Why can't it be available to you?
So are you saying the private hospitals will literally, under the NHI, cease to be private?
No, they are not ceasing to be private. They are private, but...
So if they are private, but they can't turn away patients who are not paying? How are they private?
That's already in the Constitution, by the way, JJ. If you look at Section 27, subsection 3 of the Constitution, it says no one may be refused emergency medical treatment.
Emergency, but generally they will not come.
I'm just giving that as an example, that even emergencies are being chucked out now because there's no law to back up that part of the Constitution. Now, what the fund will do is that, look, these are the services and benefits, and the private sector will be contracted also. In other words, it buys services from whether the public or private, depending on which one is more reliable. Look at UK. UK has been having this system from 1948. They had a backlog on cataract and hips. And they've contracted Netcare, our own Netcare here, to say, no, take over those people to you as private and deal with them. And Netcare has agreed. But not at exorbitant prices like they do here at home.
So clearly there will be a lot of adjustments in terms of cost structure.
Absolutely. Yes. The British government said under NHS, they call it NHS, here is the price, for you to do cataract and hip replacement. But you take it or you leave it.
Tell me, a simple message is that people with medical aids now must keep those medical aids, or they don't need to be on medical aids under NHI?
No. For now, we're still in the beginning. No.
We're far from
nobody is being told
to cut their medical aids. So they must hang 10 for now.
Yes, we are still digging the foundations for a new system. So we can't say, but that's why when you pass the NHI bill, we also pass the Medical Schemes Amendment Bill.
Yes.
To say, while this system still stays, but there ought to be changes. We can't wait for this year, for this many years in which we are going to change the system. There must be a relief, as Chief Justice Mwawe has done. For instance, one of the urgent things is that we need to establish a pricing commission, meaning the private hospitals can no longer just wake up and say, I want 50,000 rand from you.
There must be a regulation around pricing.
There must be a regulation around pricing, and people must know, because at the moment there's no regulation.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time completely. But Minister, thank you for sharing your perspectives with us tonight on the NHI. We really appreciate your time. That was Frankly Speaking there with Minister Motsoaledi. Don't throw away your medical aid card yet. The system is still under construction, but I hope that tonight was useful. Until we talk frankly again, may God bless you.